Everybody's time is very valuable. I'm gonna move this over a little bit because you are right behind the pole. By the way. So everybody's time's valuable, so I want to start on time so we don't keep you longer than you need to be, so you can get home and hopefully eat some dinner. So, of course, you all had dinner. So I'm Anne Marie Townsend. I'm the city manager for Lewis. So I want to welcome you to this meeting. I just to gauge if you received the mailing and have a license to rent your property, can you raise your hand? So I'm just okay. Is there anybody here who's not in that group that has other? Okay, but we know you. So okay, so we're here tonight to talk to you about our new rental licensing program, answer any questions you may have about the program. Could you go to the next slide, Blue? Thank you. Janelle's going to really do the bulk of the presentation. Are you introducing staff or do you want me to do that now? Okay, so we're going to start by introducing our staff. As I said, I'm Anne Marie Townsend. I'm the city manager. To my right is Janelle Cornwell. She is our planner. Technically, she is the department manager of the planning and building department. And then we've got in the blue shirt over here, John Robitaille. He is our building official. Next to John is Chelsea Moore. She is our permit specialist. She may become Chelsea Clark one day when she gets back from Florida. So if you get correspondence from Chelsea Clark, it's the same person. We have Blue who does our technology, Blue Jade. Melody Barger is our local government management fellow. She's been helping us get this up and running. In the back of the room is Ellen Lorraine McCabe. She is our assistant city manager and financial officer. And we also have Carolyn Jones, our council person who chaired the committee that worked on developing this rental license program. So we have the agenda. I'm not going to read the agenda to you. I'm confident you can all read it. So this is kind of what we'll be going through this evening, ending in Q&A. We don't plan, it might look like a long agenda. We're not going to talk at you for a long time. We really want to kind of go quickly through at a high level and then get to your questions. So if we could go to the next slide. Just to give you a sense of kind of how we got to where we are. We have seen certainly through the online platforms, and this is happening nationally, just an increase in short-term rentals through the online platforms. Obviously, Lewis has had short-term rentals for many years, but you know, it is growing and Lewis is growing as a destination. So the idea, the goal behind this was really to put some definition around short-term rentals and how we manage short-term rentals so that they can be in balance with the community, because we are also a residential community. So beginning in May 2022, we had a committee who met. We had a total of 8, I think it was 8 meetings over as I guess an 8-month period or 6-month period. May, June, July, August, September, 5-month period. There you go. We had 8 meetings over a 5-month period. We had 2 members of our city council, Carolyn Jones, who chaired the committee, Candace Vasella, who is a member of council. We had 2 residents, Winnie Key, who in addition to being a resident had worked in another location in the past on a committee dealing with short-term rentals. And Don Wong, who is somebody who lives in our downtown. And then we also had an owner of a short-term rental, Tanya Flickinger. We were advised by a consultant named Jeff Goodman with Granicus, and he advises municipalities across the country. So he really had a lot of depth of knowledge to bring to us. And we did accept public comments at all the meetings. Throughout the process, there was a lot of pressure from residents to really put strong restrictions in place. The committee opted not to put strong restrictions in place, but rather to develop a framework for licensing that one, first and foremost, differentiates between short and long-term rentals. If you ask me today, how many short-term rentals we have in Lewis, I can't give you a clear answer because we issue a rental license. We don't know when we issue that license if it's long-term or short-term. So we don't even really have the data to say we need stricter regulations. So really part of this is to allow people to rent their houses as you have been, and to develop a licensing program that differentiates between short-term and long-term rentals and develops standards for each of these types of rentals. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Janelle, who is going to go through the specifics on the licensing program and how short-term rentals are done versus long-term. And then we'll get to your questions.
So good evening, everybody. Thank you again for coming. So I'm just going to keep this high level, kind of go over again, just a general overview of the code and kind of go over some of the paperwork you were handed or you were mailed. And then I really want to get to how can we help with your questions. So what is a short-term rental? Blue, can you go to the next slide? I'm sorry. Short-term rental is if you're renting a property for 30 days or less. Long-term, 30 days or more. That's the difference. It's less than 30 days short-term, more than 30 days long-term. It establishes a maximum occupancy for overnight. It's a simple calculation. How many bedrooms do you have? You get 2 people per bedroom, plus 2 extra people overall for the house. So if I have 4 bedrooms, I'm at 8 people plus 2 people. So I get 10 people in that house. If you're under the age of 12, they do not count towards your maximum occupancy. So children under 12 do not count towards your maximum occupancy. It establishes minimum life safety requirements. Again, a fire extinguisher, carbon monoxide detector, just some simple things. One of the big things is a good neighbor brochure. I'm going to go into that in a little bit more detail. It really is, how do renters be good neighbors? When you're renting, your property for a weekend, what information do the neighbors need to know? It also establishes an inspection process. So if we get a complaint, and anybody can make a complaint about the property, they're going to call the city, the planning and building department, and then we're going to let you know. We're going to give you you get 48 hours in advance before we come out and do an inspection, unless it's a life safety issue. If it's something like that, we're going to come out immediately. Like if somebody's telling us a wall is collapsing or something's in dire need, we're going to come out immediately. But other than that, we're going to give you 48 hours, let you know that we're coming. On the next slide, one of the big things, big and really new, is the city now requires a local contact. So many people do live in the city, but not everybody who rents lives in the city. So what we're looking for is if there's a noise complaint at 2 a.m, or there's some big issue that goes on over the weekend, and the city calls, and now it's only if the city calls, and you're going to get a call from either the planning and building department or the police department. That's who's going to call and say, hey, can somebody meet us there? And they have to be able to meet us there and within 2 hours. Now it also establishes a revocation process for a license. That's not an easy process to get through. You have to meet multiple violations over a period of time. So losing your license is not something that's going to happen immediately unless you're doing something completely wrong or something. That's going to be really hard to lose your license. I just want to make people aware that it's really hard to lose your license. And there is criteria in the code saying what kind of violations could be happening, but again, very hard to lose the license. And you can always get it back. If you do lose it, you can get it back. It establishes an attestation that needs to be signed every year. Now, if you look at your application, it's on the back side of the form. And really what it says is like, hey, I've paid my city taxes. Yes, I've got a copy of the good neighbor brochure in the application. Yes, I'm complying with the trash schedule, which means or the trash requirements, which means the trash cans are coming back. Those are the things we're looking for. And that's what it's saying, is that you're being, the good property owner that we know you are. It also establishes, now again, that has to be signed every year. So every year, again, you renew your rental license, you just sign the back of that page. It also includes the long-term and the short-term rental in the zoning ordinance. So the rental ordinance created a new chapter, but what it also did is established those uses within the zoning code. So it established the ability to have short-term rentals throughout the city and long-term rentals. So on the next slide is the new application form. We've added some additional information on the front side. I think hopefully we've made it easier for everybody to understand. We're just asking for simple information. But one of the big things is in the center is we are looking for that name and the contact person for that local contact. On the back side, that's your attestation. I'm not going to be able to say that all night. And again, it's letting you know, again, you're saying, yep, I've paid all my taxes. I'm good to go. The physical address on the property is on the property. So, people know where to go. I've provided information as to where off-street parking is, if the property has off-street parking, and you just sign that every year. So you're signing, when you fill out your application, you do actually sign in two different places. You sign on the front page and on the back page. The next one, again, we're going to reiterate because it's a big one and we've had a lot of questions, is the local contact. That was a big thing when they were discussing the ordinance is who can we contact when there's an issue? If we're getting noise complaints, which is usually the big one, that's the concern, and somebody has to go out and shut down a party, who do we contact? And some people don't live quite here in a close area. Some people do. So it's somebody who, if a renter's having thrown a big party at 2 a.m. and the police department call and it's like, can somebody come out and help? Now, what they will do is the police department will help you shut down that person shut down the party. That's not a problem. If you're not comfortable, the police department will be there to help you if you're in a situation where you're not comfortable. But the intent is that there is somebody that represents the property owner that we can reach if we need to in case of an emergency or in case of some type of situation that pops up. And again, the people that are going to call are the planning and building department. So myself, John Robitaille, Chelsea Moore. You might get a call from Jonathan Garcia or Mark Wellington or Joe Pembroke. That's our department. So if you're getting a phone call from one of us, that's who we are. And that's why we're calling, is we need something. Or you're going to get a call from the police department. Those are typically the only two departments that are really going to be calling if that local contact person. So the next slide, also something big and brand new, is our Good Neighbor brochure. And really, you need to make sure it's provided to the renters. It talks about the Lewis line, how people can get around. It talks about just regular safety tips. What do people need to know? Reminding them that we're busy days, but quiet nights, because that's a big thing here in Lewis. Reminding them, hey, if you're going to the beach, here's you have to pay for parking. Here's the amount for the parking. It gives them information about the trash schedule and the recycling schedule, because they know when to take out the trash can. Gives them information about dogs not allowed on the beach during certain times of the year. So that's really what that Good Neighbor brochure is doing. Again, we've got copies. Each tenant, each unit that you have needs to have a copy of that easily accessible to your tenants that you're renting to. The next slide also is a good handout that we provided. It's a form to help rentals with general information. It gives them the information as to how many people that actually can be in the rental. It calculates the maximum occupancy. It tells them where, if you have off-street parking, it's located. It tells them who the local contact is. So if you're not the local contact and they need to get a hold of something, like the Wi-Fi isn't working or the refrigerator stopped working, who do they contact? So they have that information, again, easily accessible. It also provides them with the evacuation zone. So that was one of the things that information that needs to be provided to the renters. So we did provide a map. If you're in the red, you're in zone 1. Actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. Actually, this is the next slide if you want to go there. So it's the evacuation zones. It's just telling you if there's some type of emergency, if there's a hurricane or something significant that the city needs to evacuate, we're going to let you know this is who needs to evacuate, and letting them know, if I live over here, I need to evacuate. If I'm in zone 1, I know I'm in the red, I need to evacuate if I'm in zone 1. It also shows the main emergency access route, which is Savannah Road. It's the only one that the state has designated. There are, of course, other ways to get in and out of the city, but the main evacuation route is Savannah Road. So the next slide, again, they established life safety requirements, working smoke detectors. You need to have them in every bedroom and outside of all sleeping areas and on all habitable floors. So if you have a 2-story house, you need to have one on at least both stories. If you have 4 bedrooms, you need to have one in every bedroom. So that's what you're looking for. You need to have a working carbon monoxide detector in every dwelling that has an attached garage or fuel appliances. So if you've got propane, gas, you need to have a carbon monoxide detector in the house. You need to have a working and charged fire extinguisher. We're not saying what kind, we're just saying you have to have one. And then you have to have GFCI receptacles within 6 feet of the sink. So it's the outlets that have the little button in the center. So when I blow dry my hair and I pop it and the hairdryer breaks, that's the button. That's what a GFCI is, if that helps everybody. So that's what that is. It's the outlet that has the little button that pops out in the center. That's what a GFCI is. So you need to have those. And again, just within 6 feet of the sink. So the bathrooms, the kitchen sink, and any other sink you may have in the house. The next slide. So if you had questions, we tried to come up with a bunch. We've got 5 pages of frequently asked questions. So again, when does this go into effect? It goes into effect January 1st. So it'll impact next year's rentals. Now, what happens, I already have a contract for next year. This does not impact you because you have a contract already in place. But if that contract, then so we recognized, okay, I already had a contract, it's in place. We recognize that. But if you don't, then you have to comply with all these rules and regulations.
Can I just jump in on that?
Yeah.
I mean, the main thing that we're looking at, I think that has come up as it relates to prior contracts that were in place previously would be the maximum occupancy.
Mm-hmm.
We still expect you to have you still need to get the license.
Yes.
You're still expected to have working smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, those basic life safety things. One of the things that came up was that if people had already had a contract for a rental for next year, and we're just now giving you the maximum occupancy, that was putting people at a disadvantage, especially because, we can't force you to break a contract. So it's really those things. We still expect that you would have the license and meet the life safety requirements.
Yeah. Frequently asked questions also cover, can an accessory structure be used as short-term? The answer is no. Lets you know how much the rental license costs. It is now $200 per your short-term or long-term rental. So it does establish that. And again, it also reminds you that you still have to do the GRRT that's due in February. So if you've got questions, we hope we've answered most of them there, but that's what we're here tonight. So the next slide is, again, the main contacts. Most of you have already probably sent Chelsea something over the years because she's our rental permit specialist. So she handles all the rentals and she has been for a couple of years now. So you've probably sent her something and she's probably talked to you or responded back to you, but she's going to be your main point of contact. She's going to be the one sending the letters. She's going to be the one issuing the permit. If the form is, your license is going to look a little different now. So don't worry if it looks a little bit different. We're taking on a new form than when we issue the license. Jonathan Garcia is our code enforcement officer. So if we get a complaint here, he's the one you see around town now, making sure people are doing work with building permits and making sure they've got their business license or making sure everybody's cutting their grass. So he'll be there if you guys have got questions about violations for property maintenance and other things, he's there. John Robitaille, again, our building official. If you've got building questions, he's our go-to person. And again, any of those, John and Jonathan and Joe and Mark, we've got way too many J's in the department. They will be the ones coming out and doing any type of inspection. And then again, if they aren't around and you need additional questions, you can just send me an email and I'm happy to respond and happy to answer any questions. So the next slide, please, Blue, is how can we help? What questions do you have? What did I not cover? So the floor is yours. We can give you the mic. So make sure everybody can hear you. And then we want to make sure, well, also for the people, there are people on Zoom because not everybody could attend tonight. So we want to make sure people could attend. Okay, so yes, please, Blue.
Dee Haas, number 23 in the FAQs talk about short-term only for local contact. I went long-term only. Do I need a local contact?
The long-term rental does not require a local contact. The issue really had to do with, because there's so much turnover with short-term rentals. You have people who are here one week, gone the next. With a long-term rental, that person's there, they're invested in the neighborhood, and typically if there's an issue, it would be dealt with the tenant.
Okay, next question. Also Dee Haas. I am not local, 2 hours away, with long-term rental only. The only local contact I would have for this type of situation is Penn Fed Realty, formerly Gallo, since they're the one who conduct the rentals for me, but I do not know yet if they're going to provide the service. If they don't, I absolutely do not have anybody take on such a big responsibility as expected by the city, and please do not save funds to neighbors and unacceptable making responsible.
So the good thing is you're long-term, so you don't need that. The main thing you need for a long-term is the good neighbor brochure is still required. The evacuation information is still required. The short-term rentals need the local contact.
With Gallo or Penn, I think they changed.
I didn't know they changed.
Yeah, I didn't know either. I think Dee was the one who told me. But they seem to have like an overnight. So I think they're having a landline during the day, and then that landline goes to an emergency during the night. So I
They've
think
got
they're,
an on-call person.
yeah, I
that
think they are going to be
Yes.
available 24/7.
And as a matter of fact, Adrian Gallagher from Gallo, or okay, Adrian Gallagher attended all or most of the meetings, and she actually gave a lot of input into the local contact, because she has had that experience before being at the Lewis office. She was in the Rehoboth office, where she was often a local contact that had to be called into rentals at Dewey Beach to address late
And
night
then-
issues.
There's another question also by Dee Haas, noticing a trend. GFCI. If there are more than one outlet 6 feet from the kitchen sink, do all of them need to be GFCI? Some GFCIs are connected to other outlets that do not have the reset button because they are reset from the outlet that does have the reset buttons.
We're gonna turn
John,
over to the
yeah,
building
got that
official
one.
for that one.
Hi. If there is an instance where the one ground fault outlet is upstream of, in other words, the others are wired away from that outlet then covers the other outlets. So that would be a question to confirm with an electrician to see how your house is wired. It's possible that the ground fault outlet is protecting other outlets, but without checking with an electrician, you can't really be sure.
Anybody in the room have questions? Yes, okay. Blue, I mean, we're gonna need the mic and we're gonna start with her, 'cause she just had her hand, okay. And then we'll come up to the lady in purple and then we'll go back, I think, to the woman in pink and green.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Reese. I have two easy ones and one a little more difficult. With regard to the contact person, I think you've cleared that up. That can be a real estate agent.
Absolutely.
All right, so that one's clear. With regard to the smoke detectors, do they have to be hardwired?
The answer is no, just for everybody on Zoom.
Okay. And then the last one is with regard to the short-term versus long-term rentals. Sometimes I rent to medical personnel at the hospital, and they might be a traveling nurse who has signed up for a 3-month tour.
Mhm.
And for whatever reason, they leave before the 3 months, and or it could be vice versa. They've come for a month and extend for 3 months. So when I fill out my license application, do I note that? Or
So I think the question is, do you ever rent for less than 30 days?
I mean, that could be a possibility if that person leaves their job for, unbeknownst to me, that
'Cause
when
the-
they sign the
I
contract.
would say if the terms of your rental
Agree.
are that it's more than 30 days, even if you allow them an out, that I would still consider that a long-term. You're not renting for 2 weeks at a time or what, you're renting for a longer period of time.
Mhm.
But if it's an employment situation where they have to leave earlier and you'd let them out of the lease, I think that's reasonable.
Thank you so much.
I don't, one of them
It
doesn't
doesn't
work.
work.
These both work.
Oh, they do?
Oh,
yeah.
No.
So I had that question about the rental. I had a woman who did rent like 6 months and then also short term. So I think me and Janelle decided about giving us 2 applications to have on file, so that we knew she did short and long term.
But we were only gonna charge her
Yeah,
for one.
because she's only renting.
So what, okay, so I would
We'll
say
figure that
that
one.
we would do one license that would be short term, but in that case, if somebody is entering into a rental contract for less than 30 days, that's definitely short term. What Ms. Reese has described is she's entering into a contract for longer, but
Yes.
because of the circumstances of being a traveling nurse, she may let them out earlier. And
Yes.
that's different.
Yep.
I mean, it's nuanced, but it's different.
Okay, you mentioned the working carbon monoxide detector.
Yes.
Did you say one on each floor or level?
Nope, you just have to have one.
One, and then where does that go?
Doesn't it go on the ground?
It
Lower
goes on the
level?
ground floor. It's usually like
what?
6 or 8 feet away from the furnace, but the building official is gonna give you the details.
Okay, it would be on, if you have an attached garage or if you have a fuel fired, it's a typo, it should be fuel fired appliance, in other words, propane or natural gas. If you have a wood stove in the home, that would trigger the requirement also. The carbon monoxide should be on the level where the fuel fired appliance is. If that's different than the level of the bedrooms, then you would have a second one on the level where the bedrooms are.
Okay. All right, who's next?
You said somebody in green? Had,
Thought you had your hand up, but.
Oh.
Yeah, okay.
the people, we have people online and they can't hear.
Thank you. So we have a loft, a 3rd floor loft that we just have, I don't know if it's considered a bedroom because we have a couple of single beds in there for occupancy.
Does it have, egress? Do you want to talk about the egress requirement?
Is there more than one way out? Is there a window
Yes,
in the
it's
loft
one-
area?
It's a window, but it's a crank out.
It's a casement window.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, that would be considered a bedroom then.
Okay.
And you would have a smoke detector at, say, the top of the stairs to the loft.
And then we're gonna come back up to the woman in purple to, please, Blue.
I only rent my house for 8 people. So by filling out your form, I'm giving them permission to bring in 2 more, which I don't want to do. So what do I do about that?
That's the maximum occupancy per code. You can always have a maximum occupancy that's less than what the code
Yeah.
allows.
You can be more restrictive. That's perfectly fine.
Can I cross out your 10 and put
Yes.
my 8?
Yep,
Okay.
absolutely.
Sorry, Vaughn. I just want to make sure everyone knows that we don't need that form, what's it called? The rental property information form, because I've got a lot of people sending it back to me. So that needs to stay in your rental so that the renters know how many people and have all that information on there. So don't send that back.
Ma'am, you have the option to post a lower occupancy load than what the code allows, if you so desire.
And you don't have to use that form. That form was provided so that you have, you can just fill in the blanks. If you want to present it in a different way, that's fine as well, as long as it's available in the unit.
You mentioned January 1st,
Yes,
you're meaning of 2023.
Mhm.
correct.
So we have to follow these rules.
Starting January
starting
1st.
January 1st.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Two questions. One, does a propane like gas range count for a? Yes, okay. I can't even think now what
That's okay.
And for anybody who wakes up in the middle of the night with that question you forgot to answer, just send an email and.
Yeah, you've got,
Oh.
you got our emails.
I
Go
have
for
a
it.
question. Was, you mentioned in here, we have to put our rental life number on any advertising site. That we rent through VRBO, so I would have to put that on VRBO.
Correct.
On your listing, you would say rental
Yeah,
license
when
number.
you, because there's an option, for when people are looking, they can see that you're actually licensed with whatever, local jurisdiction. So when you renew, we'll give you that number when we send you the letter.
Okay, and the application now we have to get in within the next week. Normally, I would bring in my tax money to you in February.
Mhm.
And at that same time, get my rental license. But now,
That's fine.
That's perfectly fine. The rental license goes from January 1st to December 31st. But your GRRT is due in February. So if you want to come in the end of January, early February and get your renewal for your rental license, that's fine if you want to do them both at the same time. If you want to do, hey, I want to renew my license and then I want to do my GRRT, that's also perfectly fine.
and then after we turn in the rental license, you're gonna call us about an inspection at some point?
No, the only time we're ever going to do an inspection is if somebody calls and
At
asks.
this point,
Per the code, for the current code, is if somebody asks us to do one. So if you want us to do one, great. If we get a complaint, we're coming out. If nobody calls, we're not coming out.
Well, there was discussion that we could end up implementing, the code is written that we could end up implementing kind of like a random inspection program. We're not doing
yet.
that at this time. But we thought it was important to have it in the code so that if there are issues, we have that ability. In developing this and in the meetings and again with Adrian, I hope she doesn't mind me using her name, at the table with us at at the meetings, you know, she manages in Lewis, she's managed elsewhere. She said in the I think she said 20 years she has been managing rentals in Lewis. She has twice had to respond to complaints and had to, you know, escort tenants out of the property during the term of their stay. And other locations that was a tad more frequent. So we recognize that Lewis is not a community with problems. So we don't want to fix problems that don't exist, but we thought that it was important to have the structure so that if problems emerge, we're equipped to deal with them.
Yes, please.
Okay, so Didi Haas, sorry for all the questions, but I have an apartment as part of the house structure with no entrance/door or access into the house. The main part of the house has a wood burning fireplace and already has a carbon monoxide detector. Does the apartment need a carbon monoxide detector since there is a permanent wall that separates it from the room with the fireplace?
The apartment has a fuel fired appliance. Yes, if the apartment does not have a fuel fired appliance, no, it would not require the carbon monoxide detector, just a regular smoke detector.
And then K Cordy at NAAG.org. Does a propane gas fireplace also trigger the CO detector requirement for that floor? And assuming there is nothing gas related on the bedroom floor, does that also have a separate detector? Have to have a separate detector?
Yes, the propane gas fireplace would require the carbon monoxide detector on that level. And yes, there would have to be a carbon monoxide detector in the hall outside the sleeping spaces.
Anybody else questions? Concerns? Anything we can help with? Everybody got all copies of the paperwork they need? We made plenty just in case. Anybody else online with questions?
Again, as this all continues to roll out, we know you will potentially have questions. We are here to answer your questions. Clearly, you know, as it relates to the life safety, questions will likely come up, and John is more than happy to answer the questions. You know, we're not, you know, again, we're not looking to make it difficult for you. We want to make it as seamless as possible transitioning to the new program. So we're here as a resource.
And everybody in the room, if you picked up the handout, it's the last one, has everybody's email address on it, so you can give us an email. Now, we don't respond in the middle of the night.
Blue, before everybody goes, can
Yeah.
you share your screen, open the web browser, share your
Oh,
screen,
yes.
and then show people. We did build a website.
So if you've got questions, the frequently asked questions are there. The paperwork is there. So if you need to print out an extra copy, you can go there.
First, before you get to, okay, so you're in the frequently asked questions. So go back to the homepage. Just sometimes you can't find things that are plainly in front of you, right, Blue? If you scroll to the bottom of the homepage, it says FAQ. So you can go to the FAQs there and you can select by different categories. But also, if you look at the top bar, just to the left of government, you'll see rentals. So we made a point to put it on the website in a place where you can easily get to it. You know, we tried to put as much information out there in a way that's as digestible as possible. But, you know, again, we recognize you still may have questions, and we're glad to help.
And if you have questions, 302-645-7777, extension 124. Yes, that's Chelsea's number. It's Chelsea's number. And yes, she just got married, which is why we're calling her Moore Clark Moore. So eventually her name will change. But she, again, and if she's not around, we do pick up the phone and we will do our best to answer anybody's questions. The website, the city.
It's
C-
www.ci.lewis.
ci.lewis.de.us.
I know it's a long one, sorry.
Yeah, lots of periods and.
www.ci.lewis, LEWES. I know you all know that, .de.us.
You can also just sort of type in a Google Lewis's website.
Oh.
I do that like once every other morning, so.
All right, anybody else questions? Well, we thank you so much for coming out. We look forward to working with all of you. Have a wonderful night and a wonderful holiday season.
An electronic version of the slide deck available.
We will make it available tomorrow.
Yeah, so are you here tomorrow, Blue? No, okay. One of us will put it up on the
Yeah, I
website.
can get it up.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you.